You're watching E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to do a Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, what I consider 10 tips for new players. And I know it's been a while since my last Final Fantasy Brave Exvius video. And quite frankly, I'm glad to be back into it. If you saw my Godzilla video just a second ago, I mentioned that holidays were really busy. My kids had gotten sick back-to-back weeks, so I had them here with me. And then my daughter was on vacation. Then unfortunately, my wife had a death in her side of the family. Her grandmother recently passed away, and we were dealing with that. So now that things have kind of calmed and settled down, I want to get back into doing this. And I figured, even though there's a banner coming out Friday, and we'll discuss that in a different video, I want to get, one of the videos I wanted to do in the very beginning was 10 tips for new players, because this is a very popular game. A lot of people are still, might be rolling into it, are fairly new, and I wanted to share some of my experiences when I started, and some of the advantages you have now playing. If you come into this game now as a new player, you are definitely in a more advantageous position than back when the game first came out, and that's what we're going to discuss here. So without further ado, we're going to start, and this is in no particular order. All right, and my first tip for beginners is to focus on the story. The benefits of doing the story now compared to back then are huge, and we're going to pull up the story map so you guys know what I'm talking about. So when you begin the game, you're not going to have all these maps open. You're going to begin in Grand Shell, and these are this island on here, and Kolobos Island and Lanzo will both open after you complete Grand Shell Island. And the reason I say focus on the story is because back when the game first started, you did the story and you got completion awards, but they weren't as good as they are now. And what I mean by that is, and I'll pull this up here so you guys can see it, like let's say if I want to go into the Earthshine exploration, they didn't always give Lapis rewards, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of them were you got items or things of that nature, but I know at some point, and I don't remember when, you got Lapis rewards for pretty much everything you completed. And that wasn't the case in the beginning. It wasn't. I remember that dearly because I went back to the story and I replayed all these zones so I can get the Lapis. So the amount of Lapis you can get early on in the game for completing some of the story quests, or pretty much every zone, is quite lucrative over time. And if you stash it correctly and you save it, you can get yourself some early banner pulls that can be very, very helpful. So tip number one, you start the game, do the story. Focus on the story. Don't worry about banner events. Don't worry about King Mog events or story events. Focus on the story. That is the beginning. The other advantage is your starting characters can be upgraded to 6 stars, where when I started, they could only be upgraded to 5. If I believe, was it 5? It might not have even been 5. It might have even been 4. But they weren't 6 stars in the beginning. I can tell you that much. And now that there's 6 stars, and some of them have their awakenings, like Laswell, Rain, I believe Sakura. Well, you don't get her till later, but Laswell and Rain definitely have their awakenings, and I believe Fina does as well. And these are some characters you're gonna get. You're gonna get Laswell and Rain right off the set, and then Fina will come later, and they can be awakened to 6 stars. So it's not something you'll be able to do right away, but the fact that you can do it, because I remember running some of the tougher content using Laswell and Rain, and they were only 5 stars. And the game gets pretty tough rather quickly. You'll be running into some pretty tough mobs pretty early on in the game, especially if you don't level up. So you're in an advantageous position when you start the game. Don't worry about anything else other than doing the story and collecting the Lapis. So tip number 2 is utilize friend pulls. Now, this is only for very early in the game, and when I say friend pulls, I mean the friend summon banner, which I'll pull up here on the screen so you guys know what I'm talking about. The reason I say utilize this is because these are basically free summons that you get for acquiring friend points, and you acquire friend points by bringing a friend with you when you go on a mission. Okay, you'll get 5 points for someone who's not on your friends list. You'll get 10 points for someone who is, and you can use those points to summon these at most 3-star characters. But in the early going, they do come in handy. You know, they will fill in some of the gaps. Now, you get a lot of benefits when you start the game, as I said, so you might get a couple of tickets and a couple of summons that might nab you, obviously, a character that's far better, but the option is there. You know, you can play around. You can kind of see what works and what doesn't. There are some hidden gems in the friend summons. Namely, I think the best hidden gem in the friend summon is Shantotto, who is very rare to get in a friend summon, but you can get her. And she would be someone that would be a good pull if you got her in the standard summon. So don't necessarily ignore it. If nothing else, utilize it to make some gil early on. That's another good reason to do it. And yeah, so that's number 2. Number 3, try to nab yourself a whale on your friends list. And what I mean by this is when you're going through your missions, if you see somebody that has a big time character like Orlando or Cloud or you know, Onion Knight, things of that nature, try to friend request them. Try to get them as a friend, because this is somebody that you can bring with you if you hit a boss that's a little bit tougher, and they could probably one-shot it. You know, most of the characters now, for people who've been playing this game for a long time, I mean, like, we look at my characters, like right here, this is just my raid event team. So, I mean, my Onion Knight could pretty much one-shot anything in the story mode, especially early on. And that might help you through a tough fight. Now, you still want to level up your characters. You still want to try and maximize your characters as early and as soon as you can. But progression is also very important. So if you run into a wall, try to get yourself a whale friend to put on your list that can help you nail down maybe that first tough boss in the storyline, or if you're fighting the first trial boss, Integer. Most people can one-shot Integer now, you know, so if you want to get that early sword, and the enhancer sword, I believe it was, take a whale friend. Just have them one-shot them, and you got yourself a new sword that you can use. That'll make your characters better. So, number 4, when doing King Mog events, try to focus on getting metal Kakwatars and items if possible. So a lot of these King Mog events, and there's more than just one event now. Back when I started, there was only King Mog events, which are the ones where you pretty much farm for a certain item that you trade in for items that the King Mog has. Now you have story trials and raids. But King Mog is still a very, very good source of getting materials to increase star rating of your characters, especially if you're going from 5 to 6 mainly. It's also a good source of metal Gigantars, because there is an event where you can farm Gigantars and get, you know, some to level up your characters, but that only comes like once every 3 or 4 weeks, where the King Mog event is at least, you might get the Kakwatar Dunes once a month. You'll get a King Mog event at least twice a month, and each King Mog event, they sell 100 metal Gigantars for usually 100 a piece in terms of the currency that's given during the event. So as an early player, I would say focus on doing the event just to get that and to get the items. Sometimes every now and then you'll get a nice item that'll come from the event, you know, a weapon, a piece of armor. You definitely want to get those. They're of no value to most players now that have been playing the game for a long time, even though I still buy them. I still buy them just to have them, because they're usually one-offs. You'll never see them again. But you definitely want to focus on getting those, because usually those items will be better than what you have. This early in the game, you will not have Trustmaster items. This early in the game, some of the rewards you get will not be as good as what you can buy from the King Mog. So definitely focus. The thing of it is, you won't be able to do the advanced or the elite. You may not be able to do the advanced or elite, but you should be able to do the first 2 levels of the King Mog event, and you should be able to do those enough to generate enough currency to get the King Mogs and, the Metal Gigantars, and to get the item, whether it's a really good weapon or a really good piece of armor. So that should be your focus when doing a King Mog event early in the game. Number 5, do all weekend events when they are up. Once again, these are the events that come about once a month, and they rotate. Kakwatar Dunes, Gill Snapper Cave, Crystal Cave. Definitely the Kakwatar Dunes. You want to level up your characters as soon as possible so you can awaken them, because once you awaken them, then you have to level them up again. And like I said, you have characters that are now were 3-star base back when I started that are now can go up to 6-star. And it's very important if you want to take advantage of being a new player now versus what it was like to be a new player back in the day. You definitely want to get those guys up in level and awakened as soon as possible to make your journey through the storyline easier. Because I remember as a new player using some of these base characters, even though they were strong and all that, some of the battles were tough. But now with 6-star characters, some of them are pretty trivial. Up until later on when Gumi kind of figured out, well, we got to make this a little bit harder, guys. So, but that early going, I would say pretty much all of Lapis until maybe the very end, the very last few maps, pretty much all of Lapis with a good 6-star crew, even if it's not traditionally a 5 to 6, even if it's a character you had at 3 or 4 stars that can be upgraded to 6, they can pretty much run through that. So definitely important. The other reason you want to do the weekend events, you also get the Gil Sniper Cave, which gives you a lot of Gil. And Gil becomes very important once you start getting into the late game. And when I say late game, I mean you're finishing up the story and you're starting to tackle harder portions of the weekly events as well as the trials. Because at that point, to further enhance your character means enhancing their skills, which is doing enhancements, which cost a lot of money. I think some of the cheapest enhancements are 250,000 Gil. Some of the more expensive ones are 1,000,000 Gil. So do the Gil Sniper Caves when you can afford to, because it's pretty expensive to do Gil Sniper. I think the Gil Sniper Cave is like 30. The top one is 30 energy. That gives you an opportunity to have maybe 1 round versus 3 of the more valuable Gil Snappers, which are the ones with the little Gil Snapper on the back. The Crystal Cave, if you really need, I would say in the early going, it's not a bad idea to do that, because Espers can be very helpful, and you'll get to a point in the game where you'll be flooded with Espers in your inventory, but in the early game you will not be. And if you have a couple of Espers that you want to awaken to 2 stars, then the Crystal Cave is not such a bad idea to do. And every now and then they'll also drop the Enchanted Maze. This one doesn't come around as often. I would say it comes around like once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks. But when the Enchanted Cave does come out, you definitely want to farm the hell out of that, because there's a lot of good opportunity to not only get Gigantars as well as Gil Snappers, but you also get material to awaken some of these 5 stars to 6 stars, and I believe material also from, no, mainly from 5 to 6. And that's very important, because once you awaken a character from 4-star to 5-star, those materials from 5-star down, those are readily available throughout the world. Once you're ready to bring a character from 5 to 6, those materials are only available through the Enchanted Maze, the King Mog event, and then the occasional reward for going through either a story event or from buying them in the bundle. And sometimes buying bundles will require either Lapis or money, and that's when you got to decide whether you want to make that kind of investment. So, see, what are we up to? 6. You want to do your daily pulls, especially on relevant banners. Now, I've heard people in the past say, don't waste your Lapis on daily pulls. I disagree. Maybe now it's not as worth it, but I gotta say, I've done my daily pulls from day 1 to now. I have spent 250 Lapis a day doing my daily pulls. Why? I personally have had some pretty good luck on my daily pulls. A couple of characters I've gotten off of daily pulls. Most recently, I got Christine. Before that banner went down, I got Christine on the daily pull. In the past, I've gotten Noctis, Lightning shortly after she came out when I missed her on the banner, and then finally I got her. Lunith, did I say Darkfina? I might have said Darkfina already. Darkfina, and there's a small handful more, at least 2 or 3 more that I can't think of off the top of my head now that I've gotten off of a daily pull. That's not including whatever 4-star to 6-star characters I get. So it's definitely worth doing your daily pull, because you might get a gem out of nowhere, especially if you're a free-to-play player. Then I think that it's definitely worth doing the daily pulls. You know what I mean? If you're the player that does invest money and you went a little hard on a banner and you didn't get what you want, I think it's still worth doing the daily pulls, because you'll still get that there's still a good chance you can get that character off the banner. Actually happened. The other one is, I can't believe I forgot this because this was a big deal. But Cloud was a pull that I went hard for. I didn't get it, and then 2 or 3 days before the banner went up, or went down, I should say, I got him on a daily. So you never know. Sometimes the laws of nature just have a funny way of working. So I would say it's definitely do your daily pull. It's a little bit harder to do it in the beginning. So if you skip a couple of days, obviously that's understandable, especially if you're free to play player. But I've always thought very highly of the daily pull. It's a 50% discount off of doing a regular pull, and you just never know what you're gonna get. And it's kind of exciting. First thing in the morning, pop on your phone, do a pull, and then you see a rainbow come down. It's very, very exciting. So do the Coliseum and the arena. So Coliseum, I say, is a good way to get some items in general. I did the whole Coliseum when during the early part of the game. It's not as valuable to do it now as it was back then. But the reason I say still do it is, number one, the items can come handy if you're an early player that's not investing money, especially. I personally used the Blood Sword for I think it was a Blood Sword. I think it was called Blood Sword. I personally used it for a very long time before. Now I'm going to go check. I used it for a very long time until I started getting better items. The Blood Sword was very, very good to me. So I would say definitely, see, reward info. Yeah, Blood Sword. Okay, so I was right. And not only that, it goes towards some of your trophies. And you don't want to ignore doing some of these trophies because you get pretty good rewards. Right now, I am 4 trophies away from getting the Ruler's Ring recipe. And if you don't know anything about these rings, you get a set of rings for every 10 trophies you get over here. The first one's called the Hero's Ring, which is like 10% hit points and 10% attack, I think it is. I don't use it anymore, so I don't remember the stats. But it was a big deal back in the day. Well, just because it was a big deal back in the day and it's not relevant now for most players who've been around for a while, that doesn't mean that for you as a new player that it won't be relevant. So definitely don't ignore the Coliseum because there's some trophy rewards you can get from doing them. And getting the Hero's Ring is getting those rings from the trophy treasure chest is definitely, for me, at least it's something I'm still working on. So definitely do the Coliseum. And the arena you want to do because the arena will give you pots. And pots are very important because they give your characters an opportunity to get more stat boost. Now, some of them are not significant. And I know that if you've been playing the game for a while, you'll be like, well, yeah, but I mean, there's so many characters in here that beat me. Don't worry about that. Just do it. First of all, you're doing it to get the daily rewards, which is 40 lapis. Okay, if you do them once a day minimum, you get 40 lapis, some potions, some other stuff. And then you also get medals that help you open up this here map. And as you can see, some of the stuff you get from doing that are arena summon tickets, which can land you pots, Gigantars, stuff like that. And then once you finish this whole grid, then you get a reward, which in this case is tier 2 power pot. And that gives you, I think, 5 attack. And then you get weekly rewards, which we'll look at now. And even if you rank in the 90,000s, let's say you rank from 90,000 to 150, you're still getting 8 summon tickets from the arena and a mid-tier Magipot. So, and every week the pots change. In this case, this is MP. And then every month, even if you get 90 to 150,000 ranking, you're still getting a 5% trust Moogle. So don't ignore it. Do it, because even rewards like this are very, very valuable to you as a new player, especially when it comes to certain Trust Masters. And we'll do a Trust Master video as well. So don't ignore the arena. Don't ignore the Coliseum. Do them where you can. Your orbs are separate from your energy. So I would say do an orb every time it's up. Always do it. Don't worry about winning or losing. Just participate and get whatever rewards you can. Okay, farm expeditions for material and loot. So expeditions wasn't around when I started playing. This is something that's, I don't want to say new, but it's not old. It hasn't been around that long. I don't think it's even been around for a year. No, I think it's probably just making a year. Because I think it came when their big update came around. But anyway, expeditions are another way to get items. Some of them provide you with a 1% trust Moogle. Some of them, my thing is loading now, so bear with it. But anyway, you can get 1% trust Moogles. You can get pots. Once again, the most common pots I see are pretty much hit points and burst pots, but those are still very valuable, especially the burst pots. If you have characters that are very significantly built around their limit burst, the burst pots can be, like for example, like Cloud. Cloud is a big limit burst character, so you'll want to give, if you have a Cloud by any chance you got lucky, you want to give all your pots to him. Or if you got a Wilhelm, who also has a very strong limit burst, or Riku has a very strong limit burst, characters like that. If you got Sisu in the early game as your only tank, he's somebody you want to give your pots to. And you also want to do it in such a way that you're maxing out their limit burst before you awaken them. That's something I didn't do in the early game, but that's a rule of thumb. So if you have a character you want to max out their limit burst, make sure you max them out before you awaken them to their next star level. Alright, so this is not going to cooperate, but Expedition is on the home page. Obviously you saw me click on it, and then we'll go from there. And then finally, do the vault quest. Now this is advice that I should have taken. I never really did the vault quest. I've only done a couple of them. The vault quests are part of the storyline. You'll find keys along the way that will... Alright, so this is not going to work for me. But you'll find keys along your journey throughout the story that have like a certain element attached to it, you know, like air or whatever. They'll be called like Aurora. I wish I could look at them now, but my thing is acting up. So and you'll see them throughout. These keys are very special because they open very specific chests, and then those specific chests have items that are pretty valuable. Like some people still wear some of those items now, even for trials and stuff. Like I've seen people still equipping Geminius boots, you know what I mean? So I've never done them, so I can't give you a crash course or even a tip on what to do. But if you go to the wiki page, there's a breakdown of all of them, and I think there's about 4 or 5 sets of vault quests that you can do, and each of them provide items, and some of the items are very valuable. So if you get an opportunity, if you're starting the game, this is something to take advantage of very early. Get on it now, because once you get later into the story, once you start tackling events and trials and stuff like that, you're not going to go back and do them. I've told myself plenty of times, yeah, I'm going to go back and do them. I've not gone back to do them. So if you can, do them now as you're going through the story. Very, very good. It's very helpful. I kind of wish I did some of them because there were items in those vaults that I could have come in handy for me at some point, but that's okay. I'm pretty cool now. So that's it. Those are my tips. Those are my tips for beginners. If you're just starting the game, you're in a very advantageous. Oh, look at that. There we go. It popped up. Well, too late. So yeah, if you're just starting this game, you're in a very good position because you're going to have certain benefits in the early game that a lot of players didn't have when they first started playing this. And you're going to have Lapis available to you. You're going to have 6-star characters available to you that weren't available before. When you're talking about your primary characters, Rain and Laswell, that were not able to awaken to 6 stars back in the day. Now you can, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's going to make the game to me, a lot better experience starting out, and then all the perks that you get from starting the game. Don't worry too much about resummoning. There's this thing that a lot of players did in the early going, that they would pretty much reset the game and try to do another summon to get a particular character. You don't really need to do that now. Chances are whatever character you pull is going to be good for you at that point. You know what I mean? There's not even 3-star to 5-star characters. There's not too many of them that won't benefit you in the early game. So don't worry too much, because you could sit there and you could waste hours doing that. While wasting those hours, you can just play the game, do a pull at some point with a free ticket or something, and get a 5-star character anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about resummoning. Just go in there, have fun. It's a great game. I've been playing it since August of 2016, and I've learned a lot. And I've done some things wrong as well. So never get rid of a character. That's one tip I can give you too that I didn't throw in there. Never get rid of any characters you pull. Hold on to them because you never know when they're going to be relevant. You never know. You might have a character that looks like crap to you, and then suddenly they could be the key to winning a trial. Just because they have a certain skill that they normally never use, but it's relevant for that trial. So keep whatever you pull. Even if it's a 3-star, it's a 5-star. Keep it. Keep it. Okay? Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. We'll be doing more Final Fantasy to come. We have a banner on Friday we'll discuss in a separate video. And I also want to talk about Trust Masters. And I also want to go over, in conjunction with this video, in a separate video, I kind of want to go through my history of the game and some of the experiences I've had based on past banners, and we'll probably do that at some point later this week before Friday, hopefully. So anyway, guys, that's it for this video. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. You can follow E.T.N on Facebook, Twitch or Twitter, or join the Nation Facebook page. Don't forget to click that subscribe button on your way out.